研究中心主任宋一鸣。我首先要向大家道歉，就是道歉。据我所理解，你们哈佛论坛，尤其是给那个学生，那个组织这次会的学生表示道歉。据我的理解，哈佛论坛的那个开幕典礼，有个传统，就是发言人，像我还有其他几位，我们要幽默的回顾，我们跟中国的那个来往，我们那个讲一些我们在那个改革开放初期的一些故事，或者在改革开放那个早期的一些经验，然后让大家都有一种很特别的感觉，认为哇，这个宋一鸣真的很厉害。40年前中国都跑光了，早知道中国的那个未来这么光荣，早知道真的是怎么那么有远见的。Today I'm afraid I feel like I need to diverge from that tradition, for which I apologize. I respect the tradition, but I'm afraid it's not what I'm going to do today. I don't need to review for any of you the increasing strain in the U.S.-China relationship, the relations between our two countries. I'm a proud Canadian, but I consider the U.S. my second home, and ordinarily I don't have a real tension. Some of you will know that the Bruins and the Leafs are meeting in the first round of the playoffs. This is one of the moments where I'm not sure where I belong. But relations between the U.S. and the Chinese governments have deteriorated dramatically, in part driven by very problematic situations in both Beijing and Washington that have encouraged very unproductive brinkmanship. Tension between the two capitals is not historically unique. But the current situation is, I think, something that is new, and something that all of you with an interest in U.S.-China relations need to think about and be concerned about. We used to be able to assume, I first traveled to China in the early 1980s, and I've been involved in Chinese studies in one way or another, or engagement with China in one way or another, for my entire adult life. 可以说我跟改革开放一起长大了。We used to be able to assume that continued engagement between our two countries would lead to improved relations. I'm not sure that's the case anymore. I will leave it to the experts, some of whom will speak to you tomorrow and the next day, and indeed later this evening, to explain whether the recent meeting with President Trump and Vice Premier Liu He is going to be the catalyst that's going to end the trade war. Whether that's true or not, the lasting damage is not going to be in foregone trading opportunities over the past couple of months, but rather in the ability to compromise that is going to scar future interactions. It's going to shape the U.S.-China relationship that you all will have your careers in. So it may seem, of course, like I'm painting a very bleak picture of the world's most important bilateral relationship. But I think there is a positive lesson to be learned from our current situation. The lesson is this: we cannot rely on governments to fix this. People, including many of you in this room, are going to have to. As Harvard's President Larry Bacow told President Xi Jinping in the Great Hall of the People a couple of weeks ago in Beijing, sometimes people can do things that governments cannot. Obviously, mutual understanding is a crucial element in this fix. I wrote in the introduction to the Fairbanks Center's recent book, The China Questions, now available in paperback. You can get it at the Coop, probably 400 meters from here. With U.S.-China relations moving into uncharted waters, educating and informing policymakers and the public is more important than ever. Just as President Trump says that he wants to close the trade deficit with China, we at the Fairbanks Center and other communities of China scholars around the United States want to close the understanding deficit. Organizations like the Fairbanks Center, and also like the Harvard China Forum, have a responsibility to participate in this rebalancing, to help to rebalance the U.S.-China relationship in favor of goodwill and respect. The mission of the Fairbanks Center, I was just asked to give the elevator version of the Fairbanks Center's mission. I'll do so now, Rayo. The Fairbanks Center's mission to advance scholarship in all fields of Chinese studies is premised on the idea that if we can better understand China's complexities from multiple disciplines and multiple approaches, and see China through the eyes of different people of all walks of life, this is going to enable us to develop a more nuanced and sympathetic understanding of the issues that affect China. And issues that affect China, of course, affect us here in the United States and affect everyone in the world. But what I really want to stress tonight is that our role needs to involve more than just acquiring understanding. That's always been our mission. Today, our role means reorienting ourselves. It means not just passively riding on the coattails of the U.S.-China relationship or the U.S.-China engagement for financial gain. It means, to come back to the theme I opened with, it means refusing to leave our engagement in the hands, some might say the small hands, of our political leaders. Instead, I want to ask you, I want to take advantage of my position here as a keynote speaker at the Harvard-China Forum to ask you to think a little bit over the next couple of days about how you can contribute to improving the relationship. A win-win relationship, something we often hear about in the context of the U.S.-China relationship, a win-win relationship can no longer be simply about making money from business transactions between the U.S. and China. Our relationship is too important to be considered merely in transactional terms. This may mean that sometimes we have to adopt positions that are unpopular in our own country, or forego activities that marginally increase our income, our profit, but cause damage to the other side. It may mean thinking critically about our own country, about our own country's failings, about failings in Xinjiang, about failings on the southern border of the United States, rather than engaging in knee-jerk criticism of the other side. In my job as director of the Fairbanks Center for Chinese Studies at Harvard University, I am asked all the time to comment on U.S.-China relations. I'm increasingly inclined to think, and I would like you to also think about this, to think of U.S.-China relations, to consider the U.S. and China not as a single abstract relationship, but as multiple real relationships embodied in personal connections. This is my most important message for you today, for all of you, especially the young people in the audience. 中美关系 is not something that happens between political leaders far away. 中美关系 is you. 中美关系 is the Harvard-China Forum. 中美关系 is the careers that you will develop spanning the Pacific. In my own work, as our host kindly pointed out, in my own work about in my own work as a historian, whether I write about Jinmen, Quemoy in the Cold War, or about the lives of soldiers in the Ming Dynasty, I've tried to argue in multiple works that ordinary people's lives are as critical to the study of history as the lives of emperors and statesmen and political leaders. In the same way, I want to try to convince you, or at least to convince you to think about, the possibility that in their own way, the relationships that are personified here tonight, as I look out, the new relationships that you will be building over the next 2.5 days, are actually just as important as those of political leaders in distant capitals. While listening to the expertise of my fellow panelists is no doubt going to prove enlightening, I'm sure you will learn an extraordinary amount from the panels, and chats, and so on. But we presenters we cannot fully embody the rich range of experiences that texture the relationships that bridge the Pacific. In particular, I want to point out that there are important experiences that are not shared by tonight's keynote speakers, notably those of women and those not in positions of privilege. So I want to give you an additional charge for the weekend. Your role, in addition to being active participants in thinking constructively and creatively about what you can do to improve 中美关系, I want you also to make an effort, make a special effort, to meet and discuss those sitting around you whose experiences differ from your own. So to sum up, my task for you at this forum is a very simple, but I think a really important one. I want you to think about how you can build lasting relationships here that are more than transactional exchanges of business cards. And of course, I'm showing my age, because what I really should have said is that are more than transactional relationships of scanning Weiji QR codes. And driven by more than personal ambition. Instead, ask yourself to consider how the individual relationships that you build here at the Harvard China Forum, and in the other ways in which you, all of you individually, constitute 中美关系, how you can contribute to bettering the relationship between our two nations. Such an important challenge for the future of our world. 最后，我再次表示非常敬重中国研究中心以及全哈佛师生，欢迎大家来到波士顿，欢迎大家来到哈佛，祝贺本次论坛圆满成功，谢谢大家。